this Wellness Wednesday on the Breakfast Hour, Dr. K joins us as she speaks to us about meningitis. What are the warning signs and what are the signs never to ignore? Morning, Mikey G.
Morning, Lady Elise. I'm telling you, for me, I was thinking about this topic from last week, actually, and I actually introduced the topic before we started. But this week we are back again, and of course, this week we are definitely going to be talking about meningitis and, of course, how it affects us and the symptoms that we will see. And so, this morning we are sitting in for a very exciting conversation with Dr. K. Of course, when we come back.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Hour. And as we mentioned, today we are speaking about something you have been hearing a lot in the news affecting individuals far and near. And I know it's not a new condition, but certainly it is creating an impact. And so it is important that we know the warning signs and what we can do to manage the situation or to prevent. So, joining us today on this episode of the Breakfast Hour is our very own physician who has years of experience, a vast amount of experience, and also a passion for healthcare and preventative healthcare. Welcome, Dr. K.
Good morning, Lady Elise. Good morning, Mikey G. How are you this
I'm
morning?
fine, thank you, Dr. K. I'm just waiting for the conversation to start and, just to list the information that will be coming out of this morning's conversation. Thank you for
Okay.
coming.
So, as Lady Elise said, we'll be talking about meningitis today, and it has been a topical issue. And so, we're going to be, having a little discussion on meningitis. So, what really is meningitis? Now, meningitis is basically an inflammation, infection and swelling of the brain, the fluid around the brain, and the spinal cord. So it's the fluid and the membrane. So the meninges is a covering of the brain, and also the fluid around the brain and spinal cord we call meningitis. Now, the commonest cause of meningitis really is viral, but there are other things that can cause meningitis, like bacteria, fungus, and even parasites can cause meningitis. Okay, so meningitis is something that usually, as we say, the commonest cause is viral. And there are cases of meningitis, and I mean simple meningitis can go away on its own. But meningitis is a cause of death if not treated. Okay, and has a lot of complications. So let's go through symptomatically. What are the signs of meningitis? Now, the signs of meningitis varies depending on who you are. So children are the ones who tend to mostly get meningitis. So for example, a child older than 2 years old or a person older than 2 years old will tend to have fever, they will have stiff neck, they could have the headaches, and it's usually a bad headache. It's really a bad headache. They can have nausea and vomiting. Sometimes they're confused, where they have difficulty concentrating. They're feeling very, very drowsy, or they might have seizures. So meningitis can cause a wide array of symptoms. Now, usually, if there's meningitis in infants and newborns, it tends to be a little different because they're not able to tell you that they're having a headache, or they're not able to exhibit some of the symptoms that the older person has. So they would be fussing a lot, crying a little bit more. They could have a high fever, A lot of times they're sleepy or very irritable, difficult to wake, and they're just sleeping all the time. They're not eating, and they're just sluggish. They're just limp. They're just not doing anything. And so these are signs that something is wrong with your baby, and it could be meningitis. Now,
That's okay. You know,
anytime,
when I listen to the symptoms that you shared, I recognize that depending you mentioned that it is more common in children, but as an adult I can remember having fever, a stiff neck, headache, nausea, vomiting, and I don't break easily. I will bear it. I will push through the situation. uh, Tell me, what would make me seek medical attention? Because certainly, if we have been following the news, we have learned that there have been some persons who have lost their lives as a result of meningitis. So, what would be that life altering symptom that would cause me to say, this is not my usual migraine with just a fever? Maybe I picked up a bug, I am coming down with the flu. What would make that difference?
so usually you would have a headache. A migraine does not come with a fever. So if you're having a migraine, you know your migraine. Your migraine will come with, some people have an aura, some people do not have an aura. That means you feel it coming on. So
Mm-hmm.
you'd have that migraine, and some people have the triggers, so you know that you feel like you're having this headache. 'Cause sometimes migraines can be mild or it can be severe, but you
Yes.
usually have nausea, some form of nausea, and vomiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so your migraine is a little different. If you know now that you're having fever,
Yes.
and if you bend your head, the
Mm-hmm.
pain is worse going down into the neck. No,
Mm.
that is a reason to seek medical attention. So if you're having a bad headache, no, with meningitis, the thing about it is that it can come on suddenly or it can be gradual. So it's
Mm.
not like it's gonna be, if you're having a thunderclap headache, like the worst headache of your life, that's a reason to seek medical attention. But usually it's something else, probably not meningitis. But if you have the worst headache of your life with fever and vomiting and neck stiffness, no, that is a reason to seek medical attention. Do not even wait. And even if you're having regular migraines and you think it might be a migraine, as long as you're having fever and feeling ill, you don't want to wait, because migraines are not associated with fever. So if you're having fever, that's a sign of an infection going on. So headaches, fever, vomiting, especially vomiting, is a reason to seek medical attention in an adult. Now, yes, so that those are things that will definitely, it's different. And usually people with headache will tell you that this headache is out of keeping with my regular headache. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's so good to know your body, because when you do know your body, you know what is abnormal. Yeah, I have headache and headache is not normal, but I do have migraines. So it comes on all the time. But this headache is not in keeping with my regular headaches. So you will seek medical attention. Now, there are people who are at risk for getting migraines.
But
I mean, sorry, for getting meningitis.
I want to say, Doc, just before you move on about the risk of people. A lot of times I hear that the biggest complaint for a lot of women is that they're having headaches. And how do you differentiate if this headache is a real headache, and we realize that some of them are really fictitious or made up or not? So I'm not sure if it is anything to the sort. But how do you differentiate when somebody say, I have a headache, when we know that when we hear the statement, we're just saying, we use our teeth and say, another time again, the headache come. How do you know as a medical practitioner that this headache is now a real one?
So headache is subjective. There's no objective measure for headaches. So it's not like you're having a fever. You can put a thermometer under your tongue or under your arm or on your forehead or in your ear, and your temperature goes up. Or you can take a blood pressure and your blood pressure is within the normal range. Pain is subjective. So if somebody is telling you that they're having a pain, that means that's what they're feeling. So you cannot tell me that I am not having pain when I'm feeling pain. Now there's signs that happens with severe pain. So for example, if I'm in pain, my blood pressure might be a little elevated, my heart rate might be a little elevated, I might look a little ill. So there's some other signs that you can get because of pain, but pain is not something that we can objectively measure. So if somebody's telling you that they're having pain, the only thing you can do is to believe them. And if you don't believe them, well, that's another question. But if somebody says they're having pain, there's no objective measure for pain.
Yeah, or in other words, you don't know if they're telling the truth.
Well, I mean, as I say to you, if somebody comes and say they're having pain, then they're having pain.
I,
So you
I,
have to
I'm saying,
that,
I'm agreeing with you, Doc, that you don't know if they're telling the truth, so you'd have to assume that they're telling the truth.
exactly, because I don't have a measure. There's nothing objectively to measure pain. It's a matter of what the person says. How bad is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the worst pain you've ever had. How
But
bad is the pain?
I don't think the meningitis headache is one that can be fixed. You know,
Measure. It can
you
be
know.
faked.
Yes, it can be faked. So
So
basically,
Lady
it
Elise, you're actually admitting to the idea that headaches are being faked.
well, I'm
We were trying
going based on the
I
conversation
didn't
that
say
you
that,
had
but
before.
I'm happy that you mentioned it, that headaches can be faked. That's what you're saying, yes?
You said that it could be possibly not true, but what we are referring
And
to is
sometimes
one that is unmistakably true.
and sometimes a headache might be you're giving me a headache.
Sorry, I got it. I got.
I mean,
I
people
was
say
I was
that
trying
all
to
the
get to
time.
that
You're giving
point.
me a
I
headache.
trying to get there, right? But I understand the medical
I just
situation that people get in. But for some unknown reason, these are popular statements. I have a headache is a first go-to when you hear the statement. You're saying, again. That kind of thing. But then, of course, Lady Elise just mentioned the idea that these headaches can't be faked. You were saying, Lady Elise.
but Mikey G, what you have to understand, and headaches are real. In majority of persons in their lives, they have gotten headache one or more times. And there are many things that can cause a headache. There's so many things that can cause a headache. It could be things related to your eyes. It could be not drinking enough water. It could be not getting enough sleep. It could be stress. It could be so many things. So a headache is not necessarily, say, very, very bad. It could be a discomfort which you describe as a headache. So a headache has a varying degree of severity. So I'm not going to say if somebody says they're having a headache, it's not really a headache. It's not very a bad headache. It could be a headache which is with an intensity of 1 or 2, but it's still a discomfort. Right. So what we see are just some of the symptoms of meningitis here: headache, fever, sensitivity to light, nausea, vomiting, lethargy, and confusion if the symptoms continue. Now, we were talking about those people who are at risk of getting meningitis. And we need to understand that children younger than 5 years old are at risk for getting viral meningitis. And for bacterial meningitis are usually the older persons. Now, people who live in crowded conditions, for example, college students who are in dorms, are at risk for getting meningitis. People on the military base, boarding school, child care facilities. If you notice, a lot of children who end up getting meningitis are those in daycare or in child care facilities. Because of the spread of the germs, they're at risk for getting meningitis. And also people with weakened immune systems. Now, weakened immune system could be people with HIV, AIDS, people with alcoholic disorders or abnormalities, people who are alcoholics, diabetics, and also other drugs like corticosteroids and other things that causes the immune system to be suppressed. And even persons without a spleen, persons without a spleen. For example, um, sickle cell patients who are sickle cell persons, they're not necessarily patients, but people with sickle cell disease, what happens because of the whole pathophysiology of sickling of the cells in the red blood cells, they end up having damage to the spleen, so they get infarcted spleen and end up getting autosplenectomy, meaning that the spleen dies because it eventually becomes infarcted and dies. So a lot of persons with sickle cell disease end up, by the time they reach into adulthood, most of them do not have a spleen because the spleen would have died. Now, the spleen is responsible for producing immune complexes that helps to build your immune system. So there are persons who have sickle cell disease who basically are at risk for getting infections that normal other people wouldn't have gotten. So they're at risk for getting meningitis. And also people who have immune any immune problems. So those problems, for example, persons with HIV or AIDS, they're at risk for getting meningitis and also bacteria and other illnesses that would not necessarily occur in regular persons who are immunocompetent because of their immune system. And also pregnant women are at risk for getting meningitis. And the one that they tend to get is the listeria from eating undercooked meat
Oh,
or undercooked dairy products, undercooked eggs, undercooked cheese that is not properly processed. So there's sectors of society that basically are at risk depending on who you are. We talked about the little ones who are in daycare. We talked about the older ones who go off to college or who are in crowded areas, who are in military bases. We talked about people whose immune systems are compromised. And we talk about our pregnant women. And the truth is that our pregnant women are at risk for getting so many infections just because they're pregnant.
So, Dr. K, can you walk us through in a simplified way how this can be transmitted via diet? How does what you eat enter your meninges? How does that? That's just in a simple way, because I mean, to just connect
It
those
goes,
dots.
yeah, okay, so it
Yes,
goes into your bloodstream. So you
yes.
eat the food, the bacteria goes into your bloodstream and travels.
Mm,
And but the most common way, and that's for pregnant women or other people, but the most common way is respiratory.
mm,
Wash your hands. Foods that you eat, sharing germs from other people. Those are ways that they get infected. So you have the viral infection, which is more communicable because
yes.
they're sneezing and breathing the same air. So they're breathing the bacteria, goes up into their nose and infect their sinuses and other
Hmm.
areas and go into their brain. It could be into their ears, it could be into their mouth. So you're putting the virus into your body, putting the
Yes.
bacteria into your body, putting the fungus into your body, or the parasites into your body, and it travels in your bloodstream and goes into your brain
Wow.
and infect your meninges. So there are a number of ways that you can get infected, but as I say, the most common is a viral because it's air droplets. You go into your nasal passages, and then they have the ones that go through your mouth. You rub your nose, you rub your eyes, your dirty hands into your
Hmm.
mouth. So it's important, and that's why it's
To wash your
important to wash our
hands.
hands. Yes, wash your hands, and as much as possible, um, you know, stay away from people who have infections. Cough in your elbows if you need to cough, and if you can get a lot of sunlight, air, be in open spaces. not in crowded environments, in open spaces where you're not crowded together, getting everything that everybody else has.
With
Then yes,
today's
that's that
with today's
secure you
society,
in terms of
Doc, where crowdedness is an intentional way of life, which means we are building urbanized villages, and we want people to be in crowded spaces. We don't want people to live apart in, that vast land space that you live, where people just live in this. You have 1,000 acres of land, and everybody lives on just 100 acres. And that leaves 99 acres, 100 acres of it that is uninhabited, and so we have built these congested areas. Let's take a look at a location like maybe a place like New York City, for example, where it is really urbanized, at the height of urbanization. If there's an outbreak, how easy would it be for people to to stop themselves from getting it?
So yes, Mikey G, even though you have the crowded cities and cities with a lot of people, it's still not the crowded areas that we're talking about. Crowded areas mean that, for example, in a dorm situation, you're sharing a dorm room with 2 or 3 people. You're in the cafeteria eating with a whole lot of people. In New York City, yes, you're walking, but most of the people who are together are walking on the outside. Unless you're living in a building which you have your own specific homes, you're not exactly in that close contact with people all the time. Yes, it's a crowded area, and you can get infection being passed because just passing somebody, you're holding on to a rail, you're going to be holding on to it, you're not using hand sanitizers, you're touching your face, you're doing all of that, puts you at risk. But it's not the same as you being close in contact with somebody. Like you're in a house, you're in a dorm, you're in that close space with people. You're in the daycare, so all the kids are in the daycare together and they share germs. Come on, you know how kids they share. You pack their food. Children who go to school, little ones, you pack their food and they will be having snotty nose and giving the other one the juice, and then they're drinking it. And that's how children are. Or they're sharing their somebody having some germs on their hands or whatever, and they're sharing food, they're sharing utensils, they're sharing stuff, and that's how they tend to get a lot of the infections and stuff, and be at risk for getting meningitis, just because they're children and they share with each other. And sometimes it's hard for you to, and especially if their caregivers, especially when they're younger, are not practicing good hygiene when caring for one child to the next. So you pick up a child and the other one is crying. Instead of washing your hands and putting down that baby, you go to the other one, and you're not actually, so you're transmitting germs from one person to the next, and that child could be having, and that's it. The infection could be okay in that baby, but you pick up another child and the child might just be not, immune system is not as strong for that
Susceptible,
child.
yeah.
Yes. So it's a matter of teaching your young ones, and it's so hard when they're little to teach them, don't share that kind of thing, don't share your utensils, don't share, because they do share. Children are just innately kind to each other and will always
I remember, Doc, as you
share.
speak about sharing, I remember my mother would pack me my very prestigious lunch. Whatever it is that she packed, maybe corned beef and bread or something, I don't know what it is. But my friend came to school with tomatoes sandwich, with a tomato sandwich. And I would swap out my lunch with all sorts of proteins in there, and give to my friend for the tomato sandwich. For some unknown reason, I just love the tomato sandwich that he brings. And he just loves what my mother makes for me. And so I understand that from a very personal perspective, that children are always enjoying what their friends actually brings to school, and so we can't get away from it. This morning, of course, we want to say to our listeners this morning, our viewers, if you're joining us this morning, we are on Wellness Wednesday, each Wednesday right here with, of course, Dr. K, talking about various diseases and ailments that ails us each week. This morning, we're talking about meningitis. Dr. K, I don't know, we're wrapping up at this time. What would it be? How could we benefit from the knowledge, or what knowledge would we need to have? Or is there a vaccine or some form of medical preventative method that we can use to assist us in the fight against this disease, meningitis?
So yes, Mikey G, that's a very good question. So meningitis, depending on who you are and your susceptibility. So for example, our little ones, they get the Haemophilus influenza, which is HIV type B vaccine, which prevents them from getting upper respiratory tract infection, ear infections, and also protect them from getting meningitis. When they get older and going off to college, and it's a requirement for most colleges that they get the meningococcal meningitis, because there are lots of people who die from meningitis due to meningococcal pneumonia, and they get that bacteria, and it will kill them. Those people come up with headaches, fever, vomiting, they get the rash all over their skin, and they can die very, very quickly. So when they're going off to college, because they know they're sharing, they're in a dorm, they're in crowded environments, most of those persons or most institutions will require them to get meningococcal meningitis before they go off to college. Now, there are other people who are immunocompromised, will get vaccinations that will prevent them from getting some opportunistic infections. And there are people who say, for example, those who have sickle cell disease because they don't have a spleen, whether it's because of trauma or a hemoglobinopathy, then they're going to be getting vaccine against encapsulated organisms. These are organisms that would be okay for other people, but can cause infections in those people. If you're going to be around pets or animals, the main thing is to practice good hygiene. Practice good hygiene, build your immune system. How you build your immune system? Your diet, exercise, rest, stress is always the same. And if you have a good immune system, you're immunocompetent, you're at less risk of getting a lot of the bacteria or a lot of the illnesses that are around there. But yes, Mikey G, there are a number of vaccinations that persons can get, starting from the little ones straight up to adults.
And the last question. Go ahead, finish the statement, Doc.
No, that will prevent you from getting meningitis. Yes.
The last statement I'd ask is, in this lineup of questions, would be: are these vaccinations something that you have to pay for? It's a costly vaccine that you may have to come up with a lot of money to do it, or is it something that the hospitals or the healthcare sector will, of course, provide for the population?
Well, most of these vaccines are provided. For example, in the primary series of vaccination for children, they tend to be covered in terms of vaccinations for children, and most insurance cover most of the vaccinations. There's some that I suppose you probably will have to pay for, but I think the majority of them, the meningococcal and the pneumococcal, and I think a lot of them are covered probably by your what you call it now, Department of Health, Community Health departments in the different countries, especially the primary series. So the ones that you normally get meningococcal tend to be covered, or if they're not covered, they should be at a minimal cost to the persons who should be getting them. But the take home is that meningitis is something that we need to be able to identify the signs and symptoms of meningitis. So anybody who's having a severe headache with fever and vomiting, don't even think it's a migraine. Once you're having fever, vomiting, and a headache, it's something that you need to seek medical attention for. Okay, and worst of all, if you're having a rash all over your body, you can't bend your neck because it's so painful going down your back, that's even a greater risk for you to, greater reason for you to seek medical attention, because that could be meningitis. And if you fall within the age groups, the neonates, the infants, the older ones greater than 2 years old, the ones who are going off to college, those older persons, those pregnant women, those people who are immunocompromised in any way, now they're the ones who are at risk for getting meningitis. And the risk, as I say, to eliminate your risk or to decrease your risk, practice good hygiene. Wash your hands. Do not share utensils. Do not share toothbrushes. Do not share germs, basically, in a number of ways. So do not share normal things that you would not normally share with other people. Do not share your cups. Do not eat food that is not cooked, especially if you're pregnant. And do not eat food that is infected. If you think it's not properly prepared, do not eat it. And then the other way to do it is to build your immune system. Resting properly, eating your proper food, exercising, managing your stress. And these are ways you can actually prevent yourself from getting meningitis. And remember, guys, meningitis can kill. Early diagnosis of meningitis is the key, because if you wait for too long, the complications, which include seizure activity, which include blindness, which include loss of your mobility. There's so many complications that can be had for meningitis. So what you want to do is to make sure that you do not damage your brain, because that's exactly what is going to happen. So you end up with learning disabilities, you end up with, before you even get death, you get brain damage, and eventually, so you don't want to lose your independence because you had that thing that you were sitting down and waiting for days without getting treatment. As I say, if you're not sure, it's better to get checked. And if it's not meningitis, it's not going to hurt you. But if it is meningitis and you wait for days, then you can end up with all the complications of meningitis. You can end up with problems with your vision. You can end up with hearing loss. You can end up with learning disabilities, memory issues, brain damage. You can end up with seizures, and you can end up with death if not treated early enough.
All right.
So I am actually reading an official issue from the Cayman Islands government, and this was issued on the 19th of March. And the statement is that the Ministry of Health, Environment and Sustainability and the Public Health Department are actively monitoring an outbreak of meningitis in the United Kingdom. On 15th March, the UK Health Security Agency issued a public health alert confirming 2 people had died during an outbreak of meningitis in the country of Kent near London. To date, 15 cases of meningococcal disease have been confirmed, and an additional 12 are under investigation within that region. The local response has included the distribution of antibiotics to students and close contacts of confirmed cases at the University of Kent and other impacted schools in Kent, as well as a targeted vaccination program for students in the area. So to date, there have been no cases in the Cayman Islands, but they are certainly keeping an eye out and encouraging those students who are going to college to come, make sure that your vaccination is up to the current schedule.
And I hear what you're saying. They're basically having a meningococcal meningitis, and that's very, very contagious, especially among college students. As I said before, people who are in crowded environment. And it's preventable. Getting a meningitis vaccine before you go off, meningococcal, sorry, vaccine before you go off to college is a preventative measure.
Doc, I want to say,
and that's something that most colleges, especially in developed countries, tend to. You cannot. I remember when my boys were going off to college, without that in vaccination, they weren't allowed.
Wow.
The public health department weren't allowing them. They had to have proof of the vaccine. Yep. Go ahead, Mikey G.
Now I was saying thank you so much, Doc, for this morning's experience right here on the breakfast hour. And of course, the information is one that I'm sure that the general public, will be benefiting from, and of course myself also. I'm sure that those who have tuned in this morning do have more questions to ask, but of course they can always contact us at flashpointmedia.ky or at flashpointradioja@gmail.com, and so we can have those conversations, or simply text us a message at 1345-321-6969. Of course, any of those numbers. WhatsApp is always okay, and of course you can send us messages on regular text messaging. Thank you, Dr. K, for joining us this morning. It has been a wonderful morning.
And just before Dr. K goes, I know she's running off, and I'm glad you brought that conversation to this point, because a message was shared in the chat based on the previous presentation that Dr. K had done relating to lupus. And the question was, ask Doc if stress can cause the lupus to flare up in sores and pain in a man.
So if a man has lupus, remember I said stress can definitely cause the flare. But when she said sores, she said sores?
Yes.
Yeah, but lupus, yes, it can cause sores of the mouth and stuff. That's not a common thing. You get the lesions. I suppose you probably should call them sores, but you do get the lesions on the body, discoid lupus, or you can get sores of the mucous membranes. Most of and possibly the fact that he has, and I'm assuming that is sores of the mouth, and I'm thinking that it might just be Sjogren's, another autoimmune, because a lot of people with lupus tend to have mixed autoimmune disorder. So it's not just one straight lupus, it could be a mixture of the other autoimmune disorders. You have Sjogren's, you have lupus, there's RA, there's so many of them that are intertwined. So yes, a stress can definitely cause a flare of lupus. And that's why we say managing your stress is very important. Stress, not sleeping, going through that thing, yes, can definitely cause a flare in a male or female.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. K. So I just want to encourage our viewers, our listeners, that as I mentioned, Dr. K is a doctor with heart, and so she cares for our well-being the best way she can. So if it's important for us to take care of our health, as she reminds us every single week. But we encourage you also to drop your comments, your question right here in the chat, and Dr. K will be ready to address them. Thank you so much, Dr. K. We really do value and appreciate your time that you spend in preparing these presentations for us and all our viewers and listeners all over the world. Always current, always on point, always relevant. Thank you so much.
You know, for me, my takeaway, Doc, from the presentation this morning is to advise people generally, don't be so quick to kiss somebody. Thank you, Doc, for the information. That would lead me to this conclusion that kissing is a no-no, because it's a good way to transfer some real bad stuff to yourself. Thank you, Doc. You have made it easier for us to understand. Guys, thank you for listening to this morning's presentation. Of course, we have much more to come when we come back.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4 Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
Now, while today, April 1, is All Fools Day, your health is no joke.
You see,
So stay informed and pay attention. This was no joke. This was a serious conversation, and we thank Dr. K for sharing that information with us. Of course, we are not done. The news comes up.
Yeah, for what you just said, Lady Elise, yes, about it's All Fools Day, and of course, none of the conversation, none of the information is fooling you about any of this meningitis thing. It's actually real. It's there, and it's out there. Right here in the Cayman Islands, we are looking at a few preventative measures not to get it, because some persons were exposed to the area that it was found to be doing some harm. Not necessarily that anybody take it back, but we are taking precautions, and so we are giving the information that you would need to know, that just in case you want to know, you know, like I said, don't try to kiss anybody real quick right now, because you might just. Having said that, as you said, Lady Elise, it's time for the news. Coralee Karen comes up next with the news, and of course, this morning's news is brought to you by Lasco Food Drink, Lasco products right here in the Grand Cayman Islands. And when we come back.
Good morning, I'm Coralee Karen, and here are your breakfast or news. We begin in Jamaica, where Jamaica College has reaffirmed its dominance at the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys Championships, securing its 23rd Mortimer Geddes Trophy with an impressive 345 points. Principal Rain Robinson says the victory represents more than just athletic success. It signals a school excelling in all fronts. Alongside track and field, Jamaica College has captured titles in football, hockey, and swimming, while also advancing to the finals in national academic competitions. Robinson emphasized that the institution is striking a strong balance between sports excellence and academic achievement, describing the school's current era as one defined by performance, leadership, and a commitment to being the best. Back here in Cayman, a 29-year-old university student has been convicted of murdering his uncle following what prosecutors described as a long-running family feud. Demesio Frederick was found guilty by a unanimous jury after a 3.5-week trial. The court heard that he strangled his uncle, Christopher Bolo Johnson, in the early hours of New Year's Eve 2024. Prosecutors argued the killing was an act of revenge linked to a dispute over stolen property, while forensics evidence, including DNA and recovered CCTV footage, played a key role in securing the conviction. Frederick, who denied the charges, has been remanded in custody and is due to be sentenced in July. murder in the Cayman Islands carries a life sentence with a minimum term of 30 years. In legal developments, Cayman's spent convictions law is now under review, with the Law Reform Commission proposing major changes aimed at improving rehabilitation and employment opportunities for former offenders. The Commission says the current system is complex and inconsistent and is recommending a simpler, more automatic process where eligible convictions become spent after a crime-free period. However, serious offenses, including murder and sexual crimes, would remain excluded. Members of the public are being invited to share feedback on the proposed reforms before the end of June. Police are urging the public to remain vigilant following 2 robberies in parking lots within hours of each other. In one incident, a man was assaulted and robbed after attempting to help someone who claimed to have a flat tire in a secluded area. In another, suspects, one reportedly armed, stole cash from a victim in Georgetown. Authorities are reminding residents to stay in well-lit areas and exercise caution when approached by strangers, particularly at night. One suspect has been arrested and investigations are ongoing. In business news, CIBC Caribbean is sharpening its strategy in Cayman, highlighting the island's unique, quote, dual banking sector, end quote. Country head Jamel Sobers says Cayman's financial landscape is split between domestic banking and a much larger international sector which serves global funds and corporations. He notes that real estate continues to drive local lending, while global economic pressures, particularly high interest rates and energy costs, could slow growth if they persist. Despite shifting global priorities, Sobers says sustainability remains a key focus, with the bank continuing to invest in green financing initiatives across the region. Regionally, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has launched a national task force to tackle rising living costs driven by global energy shocks linked to the Middle East conflict. With oil prices surging, the government says the task force will focus on tax relief, alternative food sourcing, and renewable energy solutions to protect vulnerable citizens and stabilize the economy. And internationally, Russia has confirmed the arrival of an oil shipment to Cuba, offering temporary relief to the island's ongoing energy crisis. The delivery of more than 700,000 barrels of crude comes amid U.S. sanctions, with officials in Moscow saying they are committed to supporting Cuba. However, experts warn the shipment may only provide short-term relief as fuel shortages and blackouts continue to impact daily life. Those were your breakfast or news. I'm Coralee Karen, wishing you a productive and informed start to your day.
The sun it hot like fire, but I still have to go try and get you when me have to do today. My friend them pan the corner, me I link them out, we gonna ride up soon. Go look around me say, I ride cool, me say, I play cool, me say, I stay cool, me say, I drink cool, me say. My friend them build this rhythm with I cool, them drink it in them with I cool for life, I cool for life.
Of course, welcome back. Of course, news brought to you by Lasco Food Drink, Lasco I Cool Water. I like that ad though, Lady Elise. I Cool Water.
To thank Coralee Karen for the able way in which she presented the news this morning. Certainly there is a lot happening, not only here but beyond our shores, and we are happy to bring to you the current events making the news every single morning right here on the Breakfast Hour. Now we are wrapping up, Mikey G. Yes?
All Fool's Day. We're wrapping it up this morning.
No, no. And that's where we wrap up today's episode of Wellness Wednesday on the Breakfast Hour. A special thank you to Dr. K for sharing such important information with us, with all our listeners and viewers, to help us navigate what's happening around us. We are traveling, we are in a global village. Certainly, it's important for us to have this information, to act on this information, and to stay healthy and well. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we are looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode of the Breakfast Hour.
Wellness Wednesday with a difference. And I thank you very much, Lady Elise, for being here this morning. Of course, Lady Coralee Karen for the news this morning. And, just to explain to us some of these things that are happening around us. We thank the team, Flashpoint team, right here in the Grand Cayman and abroad. Wherever you are this afternoon, this morning, we want you to know that today is going to be the best day of your life. It's All Fool's Day, many people say, April 1. I know a few persons who are celebrating birthdays on this day, actually. And so, in order, some of those celebrations will still happen. So, for those who are celebrating birthdays on All Fool's Day, April 1st, happy birthday to you. I want to say happy birthday to you. Of course, I know one person, Pam, who celebrates a birthday on this time. Pam, tell me the last name, Lady Elise, if you remember the last name. Pam Hugh celebrates a birthday on April 1st every year at this time. Of course, I have a friend also, another friend, that also celebrates a Fool's Day as well. All right, so a birthday on All Fool's Day. Have yourself a great day, guys. Better one tomorrow. See you tomorrow, same time, same place for the Breakfast Hour. We have much more to talk about. It's going to be our community guest day. And then we talk a little bit more about our community on those times. Have yourself a wonderful day.
It's like we're running in circles, going around every day, getting stuck in the hurdles of yesterday. Don't you wanna go further away from the fray? Let's not get stuck in our worries. We'll make our own way. Won't you come outside where the sunflowers bloom? Breathe in the air, look up to the moon. I'll meet you outside, away from the crowd. Just you and me together, it will all seem better outside. Just us in the sky.
We use the internet to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ, transforming lives, renewing hearts 24/7, 7 days a week. Internet radio in a class by itself. We're flashing the gospel around the world as a witness. And someone will say, you know what? I heard it on Flashpoint Radio and my life has been changed. Flashpoint in a class by itself.